Something that came up in that interview, he was asked if he'd take a neurological exam and release the results to Americans. What do you think of that idea?
I think any sitting president would be skeptical to do any sort of test like that openly. On the whole, he defended his conduct, saying that he basically takes an exam every day as president, and so I don't think that he would be open to the sort of skepticism and criticism of not of a independent review of his cognitive abilities. I think that he would view it, even if he were not president, he would view it as sort of belittling the office of the presidency. So I can't see any U.S. president agreeing to that anytime soon. With that said, there is, because of that debate performance, unprecedented calls for that. Even those who support him have said this is something that may be worth doing because there have never been more questions about his abilities to carry out his duties as president, both now as well as 4 years from now.
What sort of conversations would be going on right now among Democrats and also donors?
Well, donors have already made clear, not all of them, but some notable ones have made clear that they do not want to proceed with supporting Joe Biden. As long as he is at the top of the Democratic ticket, they pledged that they will not give any more to his campaign because they think it is simply wasting money. That is just donors, though. Behind closed doors, Democrats, in a move similar to maybe some Republicans back in 2016, are increasingly skeptical of their candidate's ability to win the election and wondering how they can defeat their party's leading nominee, despite the fact that he won all the primary contests. At the end of the day, the Democratic delegates who will be in Chicago for the convention have all been bounded to Joe Biden. And so they are trying to see if there's any way that they can get around that or convince Joe Biden to not go ahead, because ultimately it is his call and his call only whether he goes ahead. There is no way that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, can take those votes away from him, take those delegates away. This is something that only Joe Biden can decide to do. And so they're wondering what they can do if, as we just saw in the interview that he gave to George Stephanopoulos, he does not want to give in.
Just one more question. What will it mean for Australia if Donald Trump wins this election?
That's a great question. I think a lot of Australians are obsessed with American politics. As Director of Research at the U.S. Study Center, we see unbelievable amounts of interest in U.S. politics, and it's a lot of fun as an American to talk about American politics with Australians. However, I think there's an important note to make on structure versus agency. The structure of the U.S. alliance, I think, means that the U.S.-Australian alliance will remain strong regardless of who is president. Joe Biden and Donald Trump may be very different, but ultimately they share a strong support in a U.S. Alliance system in Asia and strong ties with Australia. They both Trump and Biden have given state dinners to the very different Australian prime ministers, whereas you have some agency in the office of the presidency itself. And I think we're going to see major differences, especially on domestic policy, but on foreign policy when it comes to Australia in particular. The U.S. alliance is something that will remain very important to the U.S. president, regardless of who wins the election.
Jared, thank you so much for joining us. We do have to leave it there, but that's Jared Mondschein from the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney.